thank you so much for joining me back here. Today we're going to do kind of another end of the year wrap up type of video. Today we're going to talk about the surprises that I had this year, the good and the bad. Some that surprised me in that I thought I would enjoy them and I didn't, and then some that I enjoyed way more than I expected to. So we're going to talk about both today. Let's jump right into it. I don't have a set number or anything like that. I'm not doing like 5 surprises, 5 good surprises, 5 bad. I'm just going to go through and talk about the good and the bad. Some of these will not be a surprise, specifically the good ones. But there are some on here that I really enjoyed that I haven't raved as much about on my channel so far. First up, I have Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This one was an early read for me, only like the second book I finished in 2022. So like January. It's been a while, but I was blown away by how much I enjoyed this. I went into it not knowing really anything about it. It's a book in the Lunar Chronicles that many people are familiar with, but I had never read anything from that series before. This was my first time. And all I knew going into it is that it had something to do with Alice in Wonderland. And as I was reading through it, I kind of just thought, like, it's just set in that world, right? And then the ending, I don't want to spoil it in case you don't know, because the ending is really what made this a surprise for me. I thought it was fantastic, and it makes me want to read more of the Lunar Chronicles. It was great. I honestly thought about getting rid of this one in my last unhaul, and I'm glad I did not. I'm glad I didn't. I loved it. Next up, I have one that I have talked about here on my channel before. I have The Maidens by Alex Michaelides, right? Thriller. My first thriller that I think I've ever read. Ange recommended this one to me, so Ange, thank you. I again was blown away by how much I enjoyed this. I wanted to branch out this year. I read a lot of fantasy. That's usually what I read. And I did good at branching out this year into thrillers and romances. Romances more so than thrillers. I only read like 3 or 4 this year, but this one was my first one and I loved it. I read it in like 2 days, super fast read for me. And I was gripped the entire time trying to figure out what was happening. I raved about it to my husband. Fantastic. I did not expect to enjoy this as much as I did. Next up, I've talked about this one here on my channel before. I have The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This is the first rom-com that I read this year that really sparked my love for rom-coms. I did not expect to enjoy this as much as I did. Yeah, like I say, it sparked my reading binge of romances this year, so it was a surprise for me. I'm gonna try not to include too many romances. I read a lot of them that I love this year, and not a whole lot of them were surprises. I kind of expected to read or to love a lot of them that I read. That's why I picked them up, right? So I'm going to try not to include a lot of them, but I do want to mention The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. Loved it. Loved it more than I thought I would. I'd heard people like on TikTok and Bookstagram and stuff like that mention it, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself while listening to this. I laughed out loud. I have found a new love for Sarah Adams. She's one of my new favorite rom-com authors. Yeah, I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed this one. Next up, I have one that is kind of a disappointed surprise for me. I have The War of Two Queens by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is book 4 in the For Blood and Ash series. I was so excited for this one to come out. Disappointed for a lot of reasons. One, I thought this would be the last one in the series. I have waited and pre-ordered it and just gone. I went into it thinking that this one was the last one in the series. I didn't realize that she had extended the series. I think it's going to be 6 books now. I didn't realize that when I started reading this one until I got like, you know, like this way through it. I was like, there is no way. Everything that needs to happen is going to happen. So disappointed in that. I really wanted it to kind of be done. I did enjoy the ending of it. Very intense. I like the new lore and stuff that we're getting. But overall, I thought it was really long, really drawn out. A lot happens, but not a lot happens at the same time. And personally, I don't really care for the like love triangle type thing between Poppy Castile and what's his name? It's right on the tip of my tongue. What is his name? Kieran. I'm not a huge fan of that. It made me uncomfortable. that whole situation is just kind of not my vibe. I anticipate to listen to these on audiobook when the next book comes out. In preparation for that book, I'll probably skip that chapter. Without saying too much, don't want to spoil it. I was disappointed in this one. I hope the next one's better. Again, I said I wasn't going to include too many romances on this list, but I have to mention the Romance Book Club. Talked about it a ton before. Did not expect to love these as much as I do. They're one of my new favorite romance series. I want them for my shelves. I want to buy them and put them on my bookshelf because I love them so much. Another one that I haven't physically, but I've lent it to someone. I've loaned it out, so I don't have it to show you. But Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. I don't know why I was surprised by this one. I've loved everything by her so far. But this one is slightly different than the other series she's written. I would consider the other ones to be like strictly fantasy, whereas this one I started reading it and Bryce has a cell phone, people have guns, like that kind of stuff, and in my head, like those things in fantasy just don't really jive together. So when I first started reading this one, I was very hesitant. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this one. And by the end of it, and by the end of the second one, House of Sky and Breath, it's my new favorite Sarah J. Maas series. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I love these. Next up, I have one that people might be mad at me for. I have It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This is in the disappointing category for me this year. Everyone raves about Colleen Hoover. And to be honest, I just don't get it. I don't get it. Her books are marketed as like romance books. And yes, the story was, but it wasn't. It was more so of like a contemporary, I guess, it was like a contemporary romantic struggle book for me. I much more prefer lighthearted comedy romances, and this is not that. So maybe it's my own fault, maybe it's my own preferences, but everyone hyped this one up so much that I went into it thinking that I would love it too. And it's a good story, don't get me wrong. It's a good story. I understand why people love it, but I myself did not love it. I was disappointed. Next up, I have another disappointing read that should not have been disappointing, but it was. I have Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I read Beach Read and The People We Meet on Vacation and didn't really care much for them, but I saw Book Lovers come out. It was specifically targeted, it was marketed as a romantic comedy. So I read it, I gave it a chance, I was optimistic about it, I thought maybe I'll like this, and I did in the first like half of the book. I thought the first half of the book was great. I was intrigued, I was engaged, and then it just shifted into a typical Emily Henry book for me. To me, her books are not romance books. They are contemporary books with romance in them, and to me there is a difference. I'm using all these hand motions because I feel very strongly about this. There's a difference to me. And so marketing this as a romantic comedy fell short of that mark for me. To me, it's more, like I say, of a contemporary book. It really focuses on her relationship with her sister instead of the romance with the male protagonist, which is fine. But don't market it as a romantic comedy if that's not really the focus. Besides the point. I was disappointed in this one. I went into it with optimism and left disappointed. Next up, I have another disappointing one that people won't be surprised by if you have been on my channel the last few weeks. I have to go to Enclaves by Naomi Novik. I love Naomi Novik. I've loved everything by her so far that I've read. I love the first two in the series. I have them. A Deadly Education and The Last Graduate. I love these two so much. I was so excited to read them. I read them twice this year. I love them and I was so excited to get to this one. When it came out, I pre-ordered it. Was so excited, waited impatiently, and then I read it and I was disappointed. I did a whole reading vlog on it if you want more in-depth thoughts. I'm not going to spoil anything or go into it too much, but it wasn't the conclusion that I anticipated. The lore was the best part of this book for me, but the plot itself, what do you say? I have more in-depth thoughts in my reading vlog if you would like to know them. It is the last book in the series, so I don't want to go into it too much and spoil it for everyone else. That would honestly probably be the last one, but I don't want to end this video on a downer note. I want to be positive, so I'm going to pick another rom-com just because that's what I've read a lot of. I'm going to say The Enemy by Sarah Adams. I know Sarah Adams has already been on this list so far, but I'm really just surprised by how much I enjoy her books, so much so that The Enemy might be my favorite rom-com of this year. I loved it. The plot, not so much. That's not to say that the plot is bad or anything like that. That's not it at all. I just fell in love with these characters. The male protagonist for this is swoon-worthy. I loved him. He kind of reminded me of my husband a little bit. I love this one. Like I say, probably my favorite rom-com of the year. And I expected to like it because, like I say, I have liked Sarah Adams in the past. I just did not expect to like it as much as I did. It was fantastic. So there we go. Those are my surprises for 2022. The good and the bad, the best and the worst. Don't know what else to say about it. Let me know down below if you've read any of these, how you felt about them. I feel like I know a lot of people don't agree with me on a few of these. Emily Henry, Colleen Hoover, everyone loves. Oh wow. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe down below and leave a comment. You guys are awesome. I'm so thankful for you. I'm blessed that you're here, and we will meet back here next time. See ya!